Welcome back to, first of all, the world's most inconsistent podcast. What has it been? 3 months? Well, it's actually technically Pastries, Pumps and Pondering, episode 13. So we're still going, okay? You have to think of it like a clap. You never actually stop clapping in life. You just increase the intervals between claps, okay? On a real though, bear with me if I'm stuttering a little bit during this episode. When I tend to find I have a bit of a gap between podcast episodes, it does take a second to get back into the fluidity of it. And also just speaking at a camera for so long, because usually with a lot of other content I do, it's a little bit more snappy, a little bit off the cuff. This is a little bit more chill, a little bit more vibes. Probably listen to this driving a car or eating a meal, something like that. Probably not watching this on a doom scroll. So, with that being said, welcome back. If it's your first time listening, you've got 12 other episodes of me oversharing to go listen to. Joking, I don't overshare too much, I don't think. But this is episode 13, okay? And I think there's going to be some changes going forward to the podcast because this really is something I want to bring up. I enjoy it from a fulfillment perspective. Like, I think it creates some really meaningful conversations, and also it's just good to share stories. I think that's really positive, especially in the world nowadays where social media isn't as honest as maybe it used to be. I don't know if it's ever been honest. Let's be fucking honest. Don't even mean for that to come out that way. But with that being said, I enjoy it. I think it creates really, really good conversations around different topics, which some people may dance around. So, with that being said, what is going to change? So, first of all, I'm going to try and get out at least a podcast a month. That's the minimum, okay? And it's actually going to kind of separate a little bit from, like, what you'd see on me on maybe, like, Instagram. Like, Instagram for me is very much like fitness, lifestyle, gym, growing a shit ton of muscle, hard voluntary adversity sort of stuff. But this is going to be a little bit more like a yap with a mate. You know what I mean? But also going into a deeper dive of things. And I think just establishing that and understanding that, like, this isn't going to be something which I use to educate too much. Like, of course, I'm me. I'm going to start accidentally going into the kind of biochemical signals which are produced when you take a muscle close to failure and all that jazz, because I speak about it on a daily. But it's one of those things where if you are expecting to be deeply educated, this is probably not the place. However, there will be a dabble of that. But my Instagram is probably better for that if you want to go watch over there, because I'm way more consistent on Instagram, because that is more my job than anything. WhatsApp and check-ins is my job. However, I'm definitely going to kind of take this in a little bit of its own direction as a podcast. I think that's really exciting though. And I think especially if I think of that less like trying to make an Instagram reel, like make a podcast, I think I'll actually put aside more time for it. So yeah, it's actually really, really exciting. And I'm going to go into like a few different formats, I most definitely think. Like, am I going to hire a studio? Probably not. Let's be fucking honest. But I'm going to start doing some different types of episodes. So not only are you going to get solo ones where I'm yapping about a certain topic, but I will try and do some more Q&As. I do struggle, again, being very honest. If I put out a Q&A on Instagram, sometimes I'll get like 1 or 2 questions, which obviously does hurt the ego a little bit. I'm like, come on, somebody give me like an interesting would you rather or the meaning of life, something I can yap into a little bit. But sometimes that doesn't happen, and that's frustrating. So I'm still going to obviously do it because #adversity, but it is something which I'm going to kind of dabble back and forth between some solo episodes and also very much between Q&As. And with that being said, I'm also want to introduce a little bit more of a different introductory format of, first of all, guests. I'm going to try and get people on who aren't within the typical norm. Do you know what I mean? Because I think, especially given my background being more kind of gym and especially more like bodybuilding training, that I'd get bodybuilding guests on. But I'm actually not. I'm going to try and get a wide variety of people on who I think can just bring value with whatever they are doing. And that really does interest me and intrigue me. So that, and then also I've been dabbling with the idea of getting a few people in, like 1 or 2 people on a podcast at the same time, and kind of introducing different questions. So yeah, my brain is storming. Bear with me. But obviously, we're going to go back into this, and this is kind of just like a catch-up episode, breaking the hiatus of the podcast, some would say. So it's been about 3 months since I posted the podcast. What has happened? So the big thing for me, from a life perspective, is I went to Europe. I did a Euro summer, as the Americans and Australians would say. And I did that for 3.5 weeks, which may sound conventionally very much like along the lines of I'm going to go travel and find myself sort of thing. But for me, it was very kind of like different. Like, again, I didn't find myself. I'm not going to say I found myself, but I very much did kind of learn a lot about myself. So a little bit of an overview of my trip. I left like late June? And came back kind of like mid-July. And I would have probably stayed out there a little bit longer, but I've got some work commitments I've got in the UK, which I wanted to be in for, aka I've got clients competing. So they are competing next Saturday, 2 Saturdays after, and then 3 Saturdays after. So like I've got like a 5-week stint of clients competing at shows. And obviously with bodybuilding, you need to see people in person a little bit more. It's not essential, but these are the first 2 people I've got competing ever out of my client base. So it's something I wanted to do, was see them in person minimum 5 weeks out from their show. So I could see whether I needed to adjust things, etc., etc., etc. And that's what brought me back. Otherwise, I probably would have stayed out there. Given the fact I can work from my laptop, I can work from my phone. I know I've got the work ethic to do it. I'm not just going to fall off the rails because I'm quite good at holding myself accountable. And to be honest, first bit of vulnerability coming back. See, it takes a second to get back into it, but when I say a second, I mean about, if I look at the clock, I can't see where the time is. Wow, this is awkward. Anyway, back onto task. Yeah, like, if I'm honest, I usually find it hard, and I feel a little bit guilty for travelling whilst I work at the same time. I think that's just because on the whole, the mass general population can't. And again, it's kind of like the fruits of my labour of, yeah, it's really cool, but also I can also work till like 1 or 2 in the morning whilst I'm away, and I've built this over the space of 4.5 years now. So that is a luxury, and I know I can uphold coaching standards. I've never had anyone complain whilst I've been away being like, yeah bro, your coaching's gone to shit. So yeah, it's more just like fear of judgment probably. But again, with that being said, where did I go? What did I do? So I actually planned like the first week of my trip, and then the rest of it was playing it by ear. Now, for me, somebody who's quite a type A person, usually, where I'm quite organised, I like my certain routine, I know what I'm doing on what day, my gym schedule, my cardio, like, that was quite out of the blue for me. I was like, I want to try it and see, because it scares me a little bit, sometimes. So, I planned the first week, and the first week was Berlin and Vienna. And I'm going to go and do a rough, brief overview of my trip, but I'm not going to go into little stories because I think that'll be good to dabble into future episodes as well by myself. But yeah, start off in Berlin. Now, Berlin is a concrete jungle. It's the capital of Germany, obviously, and the massive, massive thing of Berlin is techno. There's a lot of history there, and it's quite a party place as such, I would say. And I'm not particularly a sort of party person, so I don't really know what I was kind of thinking there. But with that being said, I was there for about 6 days. It was a beautiful city. Great coffee. Great coffee. I didn't drink from a single coffee machine, which wasn't a La Marzocca. Coffee nerds, you'll know that's good. Or at least, like, kind of a popular, good coffee machine. And I basically just walked around, saw the sights, all your kind of traditional stuff. But again, I don't really have a massive interest in history. So, like, it didn't tickle me too much, which I was like, I feel bad because a lot of people would, like, kill to have this opportunity. But for me, it just wasn't itching me the right way. And to be honest, I probably felt a little bit out of place. Like, you know, when you go abroad and like you accidentally bring the wrong adapter and you're like, fuck, it doesn't fit. Like, yeah, effectively felt like that. So it was great. It was cool. I did get rejected from Berghain. If you don't know what Berghain is, it's a famous club there. I tried to get in and they hard rejected me. Like, usually they ask who you're going to see. And they didn't even ask me. They just went, yeah, and you, mate, not getting in tonight. I was like, wow, that's rough. So I did scooter home at 1 a.m. on an e-scooter whilst listening to Olivia Dean. And personally, in my preference, that was far more enjoyable than Berghain. So, Berlin was cool. Stayed there for 6 days. The hostel I was in was rough. I stayed in the Circus hostel. The hostel was actually lovely, but it had no aircon and it was 41 degrees. So, yeah, that was a good first introduction to a hostel. And I was like, I got there at about 11:30 at night on my first night in Berlin. First time ever staying in a hostel. And I got woken up at 2 a.m. by a girl throwing up into a bag on the bunk bed above me. So, yeah, it was interesting. From there, got a sleeper train to Vienna. And then did a day in Vienna, stayed a night in Vienna. Vienna's beautiful. But to be honest, at that point, I was a little bit kind of citied out. There's only so many times you can see a cathedral, some really cool architecture, and like walk 30,000 steps just to see those kind of to-do list things. And like, it just wasn't tickling me. And again, I don't want to sound really unappreciative because it was still very beautiful. But for me, like that just doesn't stimulate me. It's very like mentally stimulating if you're obviously into architecture and history and all that jazz, but for me it just didn't hit the spot. So next day I did actually land in Ljubljana, which is the capital of Slovenia, and again, very beautiful. It was probably about the size of my hometown, which is crazy because it's the capital of fucking Slovenia. And yeah, it was cool, and I did plan to stay there, but I actually went to Lake Bled instead, which is a very, very popular kind of like traveler destination because it's like quite wildlifey, but it's also like just very popular for travelers. And that was probably my favorite first place because it was small, but it felt like it had a good community. And the hostel I was staying at was really, really cool. I stayed at the Ace of Spades hostel. So anybody thinking of traveling, Lake Bled, get yourself there. It's really cool. But by this point, I was also booking things like 3 days in advance because I was kind of going based off feel. And this is where the kind of trajectory of traveling changed for me, because I kind of listened to myself and was like, oh, like you didn't really enjoy Berlin particularly too much. Vienna was beautiful, but again, it didn't kind of like itch to that itch you're looking for. So I was like, okay, what's going on here? And on the last day of being in Bled is beautiful, by the way. It's awesome. It was very, very cool. I went on to toboggan. I did a hike on Lake Bled to look over the top of it in Birkenstocks with a German bloke called Florian. Big up Florian. And then on the last day, I went to a hiking trail in Lake Bohine, which is like the lake over. And I went on a hike with an American girl. And we went on a hike all day. I fell over. I rolled my ankle. It was fucking rough. And after that, I kind of understood that the hiking and the nature side of things is really what I enjoy. And like I felt kind of really like, oh, like that was really cool. That was the first time on the trip, about 6 days in, I'd look back and been like, yeah, that is something I really enjoyed. So that kind of set the tone for the rest of the trip, to be honest. Again, I hadn't planned for it to be like a hiking holiday or an outdoors holiday. Like if I'd pre-planned it, to be honest with you, I would have booked like cities. I would have done Budapest, Hungary, Sofia, maybe down into Croatia. But like, I kind of understood like, yeah, like you enjoy being outside, but mainly like movement. And again, I guess that kind of promotes a little bit of internal reflection there. Oh, here we go. Heebie-jeebie with the internal reflection standpoint. I found myself. But I very much believe I've got quite like a high threshold for, or high need, I would say, for mental stimulation. But I've got quite a stupidly high need for physical stimulation, like exercise or movement. And I guess I just kind of met those needs, I guess you could say. And from Bled, I then went to the Dolomites, which was really cool. I booked that 3 days in advance. And given the fact that the Dolomites is a really popular holiday destination at the moment, it's very Instagrammy, like very Instagrammy. You get a bus, you go to the top and bottom of a mountain near a cool lake, and you get your Instagram photos, and then you go back home. Like I did some of that, but I got to the bottom of a lake called Lago de Braias, and I was like, oh, this is a really beautiful lake. I was like, this is very, very cool. So what do I do? Because my return bus is back at like 4, and it was like 8 in the morning. So I looked up this hiking trail, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go do this hike. It did take me in the end about 13 hours. And I did have to rebook my bus for really later in the day. And was it 13 hours in the end? No, I think it might have been 11. Yeah, I had to book my bus like later in the day. I think it was like 9 o'clock. And effectively, again, scratched that itch further, and it was really cool. And even for that trip, it was a little bit messy because I was only there for 3 days, 2 nights, and I was staying at two different hotels. So by the time I got down off this mountain at like 9 o'clock at night, I had to get over to my hotel, which I stayed at last night, to pick up my bag. I had to then go over to the next town over to check into my hotel and then eat food because I was like, I'd just basically done 55,000 steps up and down a mountain and did a really dodgy summit kind of mountain push, which was cool because a German bloke called Dennis told me it wasn't dangerous and it was just awesome. So I did it, and Dennis maybe lied to me. But Dennis, I'm not holding a grudge against you. Seacoffle was awesome. So then from the Dolomites, I then went to... Where did I go? I stopped over in Innsbruck for a night because I had a big day of client check-ins. And again, that's a thing of like... Throughout this trip, like I very much had to structure it around work as well because I can work whilst I'm away. And in past, I've been very guilty of being like, oh, like I'm just not going to go away. But again, what's the point of it? Again, what is the point of that? Like, I've got a perk of a job at the moment, which is fucking awesome, and I love it. Use it, okay? And so then from Innsbruck, I literally stayed there for a night. I went to Switzerland, and this was something really, really cool. So on the train to Switzerland, I was on a 2-train trip, and it was going to take me about 8 hours. And the first 4-hour train, I was sat across from a professor in biomechanics, which was really interesting to have conversations and talk to him about different biomechanical approaches and stuff. And we had a chat, showed him what I did, and we had a really interesting conversation. Now, the second train was the most interesting one, because as I got on this second train, I sat across from a bloke, and we started chatting, and he had a PhD in muscle physiology and hypertrophy. And boy, did we have a good yap for about an hour. And sorry, there's a fly on my camera. It was just so cool. And like, I think definitely stuff like that, when I have conversations with people about deep muscle physiology and even just like physiology in itself, I get really excited and I get giddy and I get passionate. Like even somebody in the gym yesterday was asking me about a bicep curl, and then 5 minutes later, before you know it, I'm talking about the zone of apposition in the ribcage of a diaphragm relationship. Like, I was like, how have I done this? Anyway, Switzerland, cool. Very cool place. Was it expensive? Yes. In regards to the trains, food-wise, wasn't as bad as I thought. More because I wasn't eating very like fancy. Like when I'm away, I think again a lot of people associate going away with eating out a lot. When I was in Switzerland, I was eating out of a co-op for 3 meals of a day, and then the last meal was a pub which did chicken for like €6 with some chips, which were like €8. So it wasn't the worst thing in the world, considering how expensive Switzerland can be. Switzerland was so cool though. I did a very dodgy Via Ferrata, which again, if you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen the story, which is where my feet were like kind of hanging 600 meters off a cliff. So yeah, I did actually text my mum before I posted that Instagram story saying, hey mum, about to put an Instagram story up. I promise you it isn't as bad as it looks. So yeah, it was very, very cool, Switzerland. Very beautiful place. I can so understand why so many people live there. Obviously, I think there's like tax benefits and all that jazz. But yeah, it was just beautiful. Like even if the mountains were really tall, it was green. And again, I was really just scratching that itch of hiking and being out in nature, sticking some music on. Like, it was awesome. So I stayed there for a week. I meant to be staying there for 4 days, but the hostel I was in was free and I was enjoying myself, and I was like, look, I want to stay here for longer because I was there with some really cool people from all over the place. And I think that's a good point as well to talk about is I did all of this solo. So I showed up in Berlin solo, showed up to every little bit solo. And I think as well, as somebody in the past who's worried with being like, oh, like, I don't know if I can do this by myself. Like, I get quite noisy in my head and I overthink, or like my brain's just quite active, like not in a bad way, but like it's just a bit, there's a reason why I can sit here talking on a podcast to you guys. But yeah, like I think as well, you get to experience so many different cultures and talk about different perspectives, and you can be really honest with people. And I think that's one of the reasons why solo travel is really, really cool when it comes to connections and you make really good friends. It's because why would you put on a persona? You don't know this person. You're probably never going to see them again. And if you do, it's going to be very infrequent because they probably live on the other side of the world, realistically. So you can be your true authentic self, which is why I do think you make such good friendships and connections when you go solo traveling. And yeah, Switzerland was like that. It was like an American, what I would imagine would be like an American summer camp kind of vibe. And we stayed in a place called Lauterbrunnen. Well, I stayed in a place called Lauterbrunnen. We, being the little family I kind of made there, which was cool. So yeah, in that regard, Switzerland was cool. And then I went to Chamonix off the back, which is still within the Alps, but it was on the French side. And then I did a really cool mountain push, which was my last hike, and I knew it was going to be my last hike. So that was a 13-hour day. That was a heavy one. That was a really heavy mountain. I met a Belgian PE teacher called Sasha. Sasha, if you're watching this, I miss you lots, mate. And we did a mountain called Mont Bouet, which isn't Mont Blanc, but you could see Mont Blanc quite happily from it. And it's about 2.5 Ben Nevises, to put it in perspective. So, yeah, it was quite a long day. And it was just awesome. And then I actually finished off in Nice because I was like, right, my body's a bit cooked here. I'm a bodybuilder at heart who doesn't do this sort of stuff really at home. And my LCL was not happy. My body was fried. I'd lost in the end about 6 kilos being away because my average steps over 24 days was 30,000 a day. Average. I think the most steps I hit a day was 55,000. Which was up and down a mountain, which was pretty fucking crazy. So, yeah, I finished off in Nice, and to be honest, I didn't enjoy Nice too much. It was very humid. The hostel I was in wasn't great. It didn't have aircon. It was like 90% humidity. And again, I just didn't feel very stimulated as such. And I think for me, that's a big thing, is the main thing I understand about myself now compared to before is potentially my needs of physical stimulation are quite high. I don't know how it took me 24 years to figure that out, but yeah, it's kind of like a dog. When you look at some dogs, I'm like, yeah, they don't need walking a lot. I feel like I potentially am like the human representative of a border collie. It needs walking a lot. So yeah, there's an overview of my trip. I think it was about, was it 1,800 kilometers in the end? It was really cool. Again, used the Interrail pass. Anybody watching this who wants to do something like this, feel free to drop me a message and I'll talk to you about it because it's cool. But yeah, like on the whole, it was so cool. It was probably one of the best things I've ever done, to be honest. And again, it's always been a question for me with work, being like, oh, like, how can I go away and work at the same time? You fucking figure it out. You figure it out tired, you figure it out hungry, you do it. Especially if you're an online coach, like, it doesn't mean you don't do the work, you just do it very unconventionally, okay? So, like, replying to voice notes on a mountain, replying to voice notes on trains between countries, I did a few check-ins on a train, sat outside the toilet on a train from the Dolomites to Austria, and mid check-in I got checked for my ticket by the Austrian ticket officer, and I was like, yeah, fuck it, let's go with it. And that was Prezzi's check-in. Prezzi will remember that. But yeah, it was really cool on the whole, and it's something I would recommend to anyone. And the biggest thing I would say is stay in hostels. Hostels are cool, man. Like, again, yeah, you can get some grim ones, but like the whole thing of a hostel is people are way more social. People want to get to know people. People want to chat. People want to do things together. And that's the thing, is like you end up doing things with people which you would have done solo. And that's not a bad thing, doing it solo. I did a lot of things solo, but there was also a lot of things I did just with cool people. So yeah, I think it was really cool. And that was mainly the biggest thing from a life perspective for me. And it's definitely promoted me to do some really cool trips in the future, which I've already got 2 kind of planned out, which is very awesome. I've got one in October and I've got one in January. And you know what? I'll hold them to my heart for the moment, and then we'll do a review once I've come back from them. I think that's going to be a good topic because, again, I don't want to kind of premeditate anything, but I would recommend it so much. From a work perspective, work's going really well. Obviously, July for coaches and PTs is quite a quiet month. So also other times where like Christmas and July are usually quite quiet, I've stressed out and I've been like, oh my God, like my coaching business is failing. I need to figure out what to do in my life. This time I kind of just rode the wave and was like, okay, I understand. It dips in July. Why don't I then take advantage of that, the fact I've got a little bit of a reduced work capacity, and actually go live a better life. Feel a bit guilty for saying that. Oh, how dare a 24-year-old live his life? But yeah, it was really cool. I mean, I've got obviously Jake and Sammy competing in their first show next weekend, and they're both looking really cool. Had an in-person with Jake on Monday, had an in-person with Sammy yesterday. They're both exactly where they need to be. First timers, really good condition, both of them. It's going to be cool. It's going to be a competitive show, but I think it's going to be cool. They've got UKDFBA Central as well on the 5th of September, I think it is, the first week of September, and then they've got PCA Natties on the end of September. So busy 2 months for me work-wise, and also work's picked up, I think, as well, with people wanting to get in shape post-summer. They've realised they've handled their holidays bad or whatever. I don't know. I'm not the one applying for my coaching. But I had 4 people start up the Monday before this one just gone, and I had 3 people start this Monday, and I've got 2 people starting this Monday. So that's 9 people starting. And again, I trust my ability to meet the demands, and knowing that I'm getting a higher influx, it's like, okay, sweet. I'm doing something right. I'm doing something right. Maybe I need to post more on my story being like, I'm looking for 5 busy professionals. No, I don't know, with this whole business stuff. Like, I just post my honest client results. I talk about what coaches should talk about. I talk about a better life and all that jazz. But that's going to be exciting. And again, I'm really excited for next year as well. I've got a good few people already lining to compete up next year. We've got Prezi is looking to compete next year, which will be good. We've got Sam potentially looking to compete next year, which will be good. We've got Zach also looking to compete next year, which will be good, and also Charlie, which will be good. So, but all going to be good. Again, I trust my ability as a coach to prep someone very well, and I trust especially those coach-client relationships to kind of carry through, which will be awesome. So yeah, is there anything else I want to go through? There is, of course. I actually have wrote down some kind of show notes. If you're watching this, I do apologise. There's a bit of a glare because the sun keeps on going in and out, but my back is very, very sweaty, I have to say, because it's extremely humid in the UK today. But yeah, like kind of conclusions from like travelling as such, because I think that's a good thing to kind of go through as well. First of all, like I'm someone who traditionally is a bit of a workaholic in regards to life in general. I think it provides me with the mental stimulation. Like I think I'd struggle on a normal 9 to 5. Like you should see me as a self-employed person who works probably more hours than the average 9 to 5. When I complete my to-do list, I'm like, well, what do I do now? Like I enjoy that. But when it comes to like actually living at the same time, because my work doesn't switch off as such, and again this is something I might even put in the future, like the most I've done in the last 4 years of coaching is say to clients one Sunday in their 4 years of coaching, yeah bro, we're gonna do written check-ins this week because I'm with my family on holiday. That's the most I've done. Again, it's definitely something I need to work on, and in the future I will say, look, like again, I'm going to do written check-ins. Like I'm going to do written check-ins potentially on this trip I'm going away in October, because then that will technically mean I've had 2 days off this year. Come on. But yeah, because I don't really get set time off, it means that I take my holidays whilst I'm at work. So yeah, but it's very much kind of emphasize that thing of you're working to live, not living to work. And I think that's a really, really good thing to drill home is, do you want to be 60 looking back at your life and thinking all I did was work? All I did was work. I didn't make any law. I didn't make any cool memories. I can't look back and reminisce. Like, I think that's really important to actually ask yourself and say, am I getting out of life what I want to get out of life? Because the morbid fact is we're all going to die. I hate to say it. Fucking hell, there we go. We've hit rock bottom in terms of being vulnerable already. Going to go into an existential crisis. But yeah, like, it's that thing. I think it's very important. I also think as well, try things. Don't be in a box. Like, I think massively since I've got back from traveling, I've realized again my physical stimulation levels are quite high, and it very much has influenced me to try new things. So again, I'm doing a lot of hiking at the moment. I'm going hiking on Sunday. I've been on 2 hikes since I've been back already. Went up in Scotland. I went to Wales by myself, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. UK weather's a little bit different to European hiking, but we have to kind of crack on with it. And another thing which I've been trying, which again is a bit, I don't even want to say the word controversial because it fucking shouldn't be. So like traditionally, if you want to be a die-hard bodybuilder, you have to do your cardio on an incline treadmill. You have to be in zone 2. You have to be making sure you're screaming, nobody wants it better than me. And actually recently, I've been doing my cardio outside on a bike or on a run because I find it more visually stimulating. And whether I get into running further is something, again, I want to try, potentially. Does this mean I'm stepping back and I'm going full runner mode? No. But does it mean that I could be inspired to do a marathon or ultra marathons in the future? Maybe. We'll see. I definitely think, especially the way bodybuilding stimulates me, and again, this is me personally, anybody listening to this who's really deep in their bodybuilding journey, assess it with you. I used to be fully satisfied with being able to go into the gym and nail it every single day. And that would kind of meet my stimulatory needs in regards to physical stimulation and even nervous system stimulation of getting hyped up for a set. However, when you've done that for 9 years, I still thoroughly enjoy that. I'm still going to do that, but potentially understanding that that doesn't hit that stimulatory need as much as it used to. And therefore, I'm going to introduce other things to help meet those needs. So again, I've been doing some running. I've been doing more cycling. I've been doing just more hobbies because I very much am enjoying that. And again, will I compete again? Who knows? I think going with the flow, doing things because I enjoy the process. I very much have never enjoyed the show day part of bodybuilding anyway. The reason why I enjoy bodybuilding is because it allowed me a vehicle, a vector, to do something really hard. And that's the part I enjoy personally. Again, if you don't and you enjoy because of the show day, that's not me insulting you. Again, I feel like the bodybuilding industry itself can be quite sometimes hostile. And I'm just saying how I feel. So yeah, I've started doing a bit of running. Again, for you who have listened before, my dad does ultra marathons. So again, I went and watched him do the Lakeland 50, which is a 50-mile race across the Lake District a few weeks ago. And to be honest, that was really cool. Watching somebody physiologically rev limit themselves is just really appealing to me. And it's really appealing doing it myself. So when I did a 10K run 2 days ago and got my heart rate up to 200 BPM, which is very much zone 5, not zone 2, which it was meant to be. As you can see, I very much enjoyed that. And it was novel as well. And obviously novelty wears off. But yeah, don't be afraid to try new things. Because at the end of the day, again, we're all going to die. Morbid, but true. In regards to... this is a good one. I was talking to an Ecuadorian woman about this because I think this is a great way to approach a life. I think a lot of people sometimes demonize some parts of social media which don't need to be demonized. For example, I don't get the demonization of Instagram dumps. I think we've actually brought a net positive to people's lives because you can either look at it from an Instagram dump or a Hinge profile, okay? One of the two. Now, I don't even have Hinge, but I do create Instagram dumps. And the way I think of it is like this. At the end of each month, if you not got something like, oh, that was really cool to look back on, and I think it's a good mirror. If you couldn't create a sick Hinge profile, or if you couldn't create a sick Instagram dump over a set time period, obviously it doesn't have to be every month. Other people have got commitments, and again, I'm aware that I'm in a very fortunate position where I can work whilst I'm away, but it's relative. What can you do in your life on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis where you could come back at the end of the month and be like, yeah, that was so cool, I did that. That was wicked. I'm glad I did that. And I think that's not a bad way to kind of approach life outside of work. It's being like, okay, this was really cool. How can I look at doing something like this again next month? And then before you know it, you've had 12 months of really cool things you've done. And again, otherwise, I think it's very easy for us humans to go on autopilot and just kind of crack on. So, yeah, I think that's really, really important. We can call that we'll call that the Instagram dump approach. Whatever you want to call it. But again, I don't think it's a bad thing. But, yeah. What else have I got to talk about now? Again, this is one of those things as well. I'm going to definitely look to build more topics, and having guests on will help bounce ideas and theories back and forth. But again, I also want some participation from you guys. I'm calling you out, whoever's listening to this now. If you see a Q&A box in my story, I want to see a topic getting thrown in, okay? But yeah, I think in general it's just creating lore, creating things you can say. And I think, again, that will look different for different people. But making sure you can do that is really important, okay? But with that being said, I'm going to leave that podcast episode right there. We're going to crack on. I'm going to go do some more work. Again, these podcasts will be coming out every month now, so keep an eye out, keep your eyes peeled. They are going to be going on a bit of a different trajectory, so listen if you don't want to listen. But yeah, whoever you are, have a beautiful day. And yeah, I'll see you in the next episode.